Hi, this is The Business Guy, and today we're diving into the fascinating world of making our assets appear invisible. No, I'm not talking about becoming the invisible man or woman. Hey, how do I get back? What I mean is creating the appearance that you don't have all the things that you really do. This involves some strategic planning and a couple of key steps. First, you need to understand what assets show up when somebody does an asset search and what assets don't. This knowledge helps you see what others can see about your financial situation. They want to know what's in your name, how much money you have, what business you own, and what tangible assets like cars, boats, or RVs you possess. If these assets are titled in your name, they become visible. For example, let's say I'm looking at you as a potential defendant. Somebody comes into an attorney's office and says that you owe them money. First, the attorney will look to see if recovery is possible by listing the assets they can typically see. Your house, for example. If it's listed under your name, it'll show up in the public records. Cars, businesses, and bank accounts might be harder to trace, but they can still be found through databases and searches. Now imagine this. You've worked hard to accumulate your wealth. You have a beautiful home, a few cars, maybe a boat, some rental properties, but with all these assets, you also become a prime target for plaintiffs' lawyers looking for people with deep pockets. And the more visible your assets are, the bigger a target you become. So how do you protect yourself? How do you make it so that when somebody searches for your assets, they come up empty-handed or find very little? And so you don't come up empty-handed when we publish the next video. Make sure to click subscribe if you haven't already. To avoid becoming an easy target for lawsuits, you need to make it hard for others to see your assets. And I'll show you how to do that so that you're not a good candidate for a lawsuit. First, we need to understand the math behind settlements. Most cases don't go to trial. They settle, and the settlement value is based on the claims value multiplied by the chance of winning minus the costs. Okay, so let's break it down. Imagine you have a $100,000 claim. If you have a 70% chance of winning, that's really a $70,000 claim. Subtract the cost, say $20,000 in legal expenses. Your attorney's not going to work for free. And you're left with a $50,000 lawsuit value. But then you have to consider your chance of recovery. If the person has insurance, your recovery chance is high. But without insurance, it drops significantly, potentially to zero, meaning the settlement value also drops to zero. So now let's discuss making your assets invisible. Well, first of all, can they see your house in the public records? If it's in your name, yes. Now to hide it, you can transfer the house into a land trust. This separates the title from the beneficial ownership. Now, land trusts have been used for years, like Walt Disney World when he was buying up the orange groves around Orlando that now makes up Disney World. He didn't want to tell everybody he was buying them or the prices would have gone through the roof. So he bought each parcel in a series of land trusts. And then in the end, he put all the properties together. Now keep in mind that all states recognize grantor trusts, including land trusts. Just because it doesn't say the word land trust in the statutes doesn't mean they can't be used in that state. For example, there's no laws that I've seen in any state that says that you can wear red shoes. So not everything that you can do has a law behind it. So we've set up land trusts in all 50 states. Now what we do here is we often set up a Wyoming LLC to act as the trustee. So if somebody looks up your house in the public records, they'll see something like ABC LLC, trustee of the 123 Main Street Land Trust. So it makes it difficult to link the property value to you. So what about your financial accounts? Bank records and tax returns are not public, even in lawsuits. So it takes a long time before financial discovery begins, and they can only ask for those kind of things after they already have a judgment against you. So the goal is to create uncertainty about the recovery chances, making you a less attractive target. Now for cars, boats, and RVs, unless they're extremely valuable, they're less of a concern because their value depreciates over time. However, for businesses, especially valuable ones, you need to take them out of your name, say setting up a Wyoming LLC, for example, and they can keep your ownership anonymous. We have a client who has $30 million in real estate. We have people with $300,000 in real estate as well. Now, in this $30 million example, the client hired us to totally strip the equity out of his property. he would have lost 50% with near certainty, or $15 million. But instead, he lost nothing because we sucked the equity out of the property. In this case, we did it in a way that he also got a humongous tax deduction for doing so. Now, that's another story, but it also ties in. When we set up an asset protection plan for a client, we also want to consider the tax consequences as well. So rental properties are another concern. Using a land trust or an LLC can protect these assets even if there are mortgages on the property. And most lenders are familiar with these setups and won't get concerned. The Garn-St. Germain Depository Institutions Act of 1982 protects you so the bank cannot call the loan due as long as it's between 1 and 4 dwelling units, places where people live. Now, if you have multiple properties, each property should be held in a separate land trust to minimize the risk. And then we begin LLC, the beneficiary of each land trust, the land trust providing privacy of ownership and helping you get around the due on sale clause. And the LLC provides asset protection and lawsuit protection so that if there's a lawsuit on one property, it won't wipe out everything that you have. So what you're doing here is you're keeping your name off the public records. The land trust will hold the title, and the beneficial interest in the land trusts can be held by separate LLCs. So this two-layer protection system adds an extra shield against prying eyes. Okay, now let's talk about your primary residence. In states like Florida, where I live, or Texas, where the Dallas Cowboys live, there are strong homestead protections and they can shield your home from creditors. However, in other states where these protections are not as robust, placing your home into a land trust can provide additional security and privacy. In this way, if somebody searches for your name in the public records, they won't find your house listed under your name. Your vehicles, while it's less common to place personal vehicles in trusts or LLCs, we often do this for clients with high value items like luxury cars, boats, airplanes, or RVs. The process involves transferring the title to a trust. We'll typically call it a title holding trust, or for business vehicles, we'll put them into LLCs, making it harder for potential litigants to link these assets to you. And then we can record an equity stripping lien against the cars. Businesses are also big targets, especially if they're valuable. To keep your name off the radar, you can use a strategy called layering. This involves setting up a business in a state like Wyoming or Nevada where the ownership details are not publicly disclosed. So your name doesn't appear on the public records, and we also have a nominee privacy service where our personnel can stand in the public records for you. And the business can operate without drawing attention to your personal assets. So you own your business in an LLC, and another LLC, you have nominee managers show up in the public records for your company that owns your operating company. Now, something that we provide to take your name out of the public records is that nominee service, like I said. Another layer on top of all this, now really pay attention here now because this is huge, your business. That is your company that does business with the public. In an LLC, could be in a corporation. Now get this, it owns nothing. It might have a bank account to pay bills, but all the assets your business uses in its operations, it's owned by a company over here. So your company over here pays lease payments to the equipment holding company. So one company does business with the public and your other LLC owns the equipment. So your equipment holding company only does business with your operating LLC, so it has minimal liability. If it has vehicles, you might want to put each vehicle into a separate LLC. But the bottom line is you have a company over here that's duking it out with all this liability, but it owns nothing. It simply leases the equipment for your other LLC. It also leases the real estate from another LLC altogether. Okay, so let's move on to financial accounts. While bank accounts themselves are not typically found through public searches, the way they are managed can offer another layer of protection. Using trusts or LLCs to hold these accounts can make it more challenging for somebody to connect them directly to you. A common misconception is that this type of asset protection is only for the ultra wealthy. However, anybody with assets worth protecting can benefit from these strategies. It's about being smart and protective. Imagine a scenario where somebody is considering suing you. They run a background check on you and find out that you appear to have very little in terms of assets. Now, this can be a big deterrent as they may decide it's not worth the time and effort or money to pursue a lawsuit with uncertain returns. So we had this one client who had millions of dollars in assets, including his home. He had some rental properties, and he also had some investment accounts. We put everything into land trusts, making the LLCs beneficiaries of those land trusts for the rental properties. We recorded equity stripping liens against the real estate, and then stuck the investment account in a Cook Islands LLC owned by a Cook Islands Trust. The Cook Islands Trust being the most powerful asset protection tool in the world. Our offshore law firm can step in to protect you if needed. Your local courts don't have jurisdiction in the Cook Islands. So anyway, he had 2 lawsuit threats. One wrote a letter threatening to sue him, which went nowhere because they couldn't find any assets. And the other, they did pursue him and filed a lawsuit. And once the litigation got legs and started going down the road, they realized there was no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. All of his assets were protected, and his opponent didn't feel the payoff in the end would be worth the hassle and the expense. So they dropped the case. Now let's consider a real world example. Imagine 2 brothers, both high net worth individuals. Brother A has all of his assets in his own name, properties, businesses, vehicles. Now brother B over here has followed the strategies that we've discussed, and his assets are held in trusts and LLCs. He had a Cook Islands Trust, making it difficult to trace anything back to him directly. Now there's a lawsuit involving a business catastrophe where both brothers could be potentially liable. The plaintiff's lawyer does an asset search for brother A. Everything is visible. Multiple properties, businesses, vehicles, making him a prime target. They decide to pursue him aggressively, believing there's a chance of recovery. For brother B, the search comes up nearly empty. His house is in a land trust. His businesses are owned by anonymous LLCs. His vehicles are titled under trusts. The lawyer sees little chance of recovering significant assets from brother B and decides it's not worth the effort to go after him. Brother B settles quickly using his insurance, while brother A faces a protracted litigation, stress, and potentially significant financial loss. So this example illustrates why it's crucial to make your assets appear invisible. It's about creating uncertainty and minimizing your exposure. The settlement value equation that we discussed earlier plays a significant role here. If the perceived chance of recovery is low, the settlement value drops, making it less likely for somebody to pursue legal action against you or your business. It's about making yourself an unattractive target. So how do you implement these strategies effectively? Start by evaluating your current asset holdings. Identify which assets are most visible and at risk. For your home, consider setting up a land trust. For rental properties, use separate land trusts for each property with a separate LLC as the beneficiary of each land trust. For businesses, consider setting up in states that offer anonymity. And for your financial accounts, we use an LLC in the Cook Islands for the strongest asset protection and a Cook Islands LLC that owns that LLC that holds the bank account. That way, our international trustee law firm company can step in to protect you, and they don't have jurisdiction over, and U.S. courts, Australian courts, UK courts don't have jurisdiction over our Cook Islands trustee law firm. So we're talking about all these companies. Is it complicated? Not really. You have each property separated into land trusts with LLC beneficiaries, but the land trusts and LLCs have no bank accounts. You set up one master LLC here that serves as the property manager and collects all the rents. Now this LLC might also own all of the other LLCs associated with the properties. So single member LLCs don't file taxes. Land trusts don't file taxes. There's only one that files taxes, and that's perhaps this master LLC up here. Maybe you and your spouse own it, and you have a multi-member LLC as the owner of the other single member LLC. So it's simple. It also is important to keep your plans and structures updated. Laws change, and what works today might need adjustment tomorrow. So working with a knowledgeable asset protection professional, such as our company, Asset Protection Planners, can help you stay ahead of any changes and ensures that your assets remain protected. We have attorneys and consultants on staff to help you with that. Now let's go ahead and delve into the specifics of each strategy, and we'll start with land trusts. They are powerful tools for making your real estate holdings less visible. When you transfer your property into a land trust, the trust/trustee becomes the owner of record, not you. That means when somebody searches the public records, they will see the name of the trust and not your name. the beneficial ownership, meaning who actually enjoys the benefits of the property, is still yours. But it's not a matter of public record. For example, you could name the trust something generic like 123 Main Street Trust, and the trustee could be an LLC that you control. But again, this LLC doesn't have to have your name on it, and this layer of separation makes it very hard for somebody to trace the ownership back to you. Now, when it comes to businesses, the use of LLCs and anonymous corporations is key. In states like Wyoming, Delaware, and Nevada, where we set up a ton of companies, the names of the owners or members are not on the public records. And we also have the nominee privacy service that keeps your name totally anonymous and not in the public records, but gives you the control. So this means that you can control the LLC without your name appearing anywhere. The LLC can own property, vehicles, even bank accounts, further distancing your personal name from your assets. And as we said, financial accounts can also be shielded by using entities. For instance, you could set up a Cook Islands Trust that owns an offshore LLC that owns your investment accounts. This way, the LLC appears on the account instead of yours. Now, the reason we structure it in this manner is that you can be the manager of the LLC and the signatory on the bank account when the waters are calm. And then when the bullets start to fly, our trustee law firm can step in to protect you. They're licensed and bonded. We've been doing business there for over 30 years. I have a Cook Islands Trust myself. And not only are the Cook Islands Trusts the most protective vehicles on the planet, they also offer a high level of privacy. And again, we've set up more Cook Islands Trusts than anybody in the world. And the privacy is huge because the details of the trust are not disclosed in the public documents. Now let's talk about a more advanced strategy called equity stripping. This involves legally encumbering your property with debt to make it less attractive to creditors. For example, if you own a rental property that's worth $500,000 and you go out and take a loan against it using that loan proceeds to stick into your asset protection trust, the property now has a lien on it, and this makes it less attractive to somebody trying to seize it because there is less equity to go after. Now keep in mind, insurance is good, but it is not a substitute for an asset protection plan. There's so many things that insurance doesn't protect you against. Somebody can sue you for way more than your insurance coverage. And as you know, the insurance company loves to collect your money, but when it's time to pay out, they point to all these exceptions in the 47-page contract that you had to sign. Now, retirement accounts like IRAs and 401ks often have statutory protections against creditors. It doesn't work in divorce cases, however, and it's still wise to understand the specifics of these protections in your state because they vary state by state and how they could apply to your situation. Some states offer better protection for IRAs than others. California, if the judge thinks you can support yourself in some other way, they can seize your entire IRA. Let's go ahead and come back to offshore trusts. Now, while they cost a bit more, they offer the most robust asset protection around the world. By placing assets into a trust located in a jurisdiction with strong asset protection laws, such as the Cook Islands, Nevis, and Belize, you make it exceedingly difficult for creditors to reach your assets. And these trusts are best managed by professionals who understand the legal landscape both domestically and internationally. It's also crucial to regularly review your estate plan. Estate planning tools such as wills and living trusts and powers of attorney are not only for end of life, but also for asset protection and privacy. By carefully structuring how your assets are managed and distributed, you can add another layer of protection. So to summarize, making your assets invisible requires a multifaceted approach. Use land trusts and LLCs to hide ownership of real estate, vehicles, and other valuable assets. Anonymous entities. Establish businesses in states that protect your identity. Equity stripping. Use debt to reduce the apparent value of your assets. Proper insurance. Ensure you have adequate liability and umbrella policies. Offshore trusts for additional protection of significant assets and the most powerful protection. Regular estate planning to keep your asset protection strategies up to date. And remember, the key is to create layers of protection that make it difficult and unappealing for potential litigants to pursue your assets. This strategy is not about evading responsibilities, but about prudent management. And if some stranger went up to sock you in the jaw, you would likely defend yourself. So likewise, you want to ensure that you safeguard your hard-earned wealth from frivolous or predatory claims. And here's another big tip. Don't be flashy. I had a friend who always had to drive the fanciest car and wear the fanciest Rolex, had big flashy jewelry, would boast about all the real estate he owned, and he was out there in front of the public. He was a public speaker. He got sued left and right. I have another friend who listened to what I told him. High liability profession. We locked him down tighter than Fort Knox, Cook Islands Trust, Privacy Trust, LLCs, etc. People take one look and don't find anything. He went from averaging one lawsuit about every 6 months down to 0. So maintaining a low profile can be beneficial. Avoid showcasing your wealth unnecessarily. Social media posts, public records, and even a casual conversation can give away more information than you intended. By keeping a low profile, you reduce the chances of attracting unwanted attention. And for those with significant wealth, consider having an asset protection company, and you can get more free information at assetprotectionplanners.com. The experts can assist you in putting together a tailor-made plan that can help you implement the strategies that best suit your situation. We stay updated on the latest laws and can help you adapt your plan as needed. One plastic surgeon client of ours years ago was in the midst of 8 breast implant lawsuits at once. 8. Super nice guy. Big heart, really caring. This was back during the silicone breast implant lawsuit craze. Now, it wasn't his fault they leaked silicone. I mean, he was using one of the top line FDA approved implants, so it wasn't his fault the manufacturers made these implants to break down and leak. So he had no idea, but he was named personally, along with a medical company. We set up a Cook Islands Trust. He had some investments. He had some very valuable horses, which he sold and placed into the safe offshore account within the offshore trust. And he was able to get past all of the lawsuits without paying a dime. Without the trust, he would have lost everything. Another tactic to consider is the use of family limited partnerships, or FLPs. FLPs allow you to transfer ownership of assets to family members while remaining in control as the general partner. And it's the same with family LLCs, or FLLCs, that we set up. And this can reduce the value of your estate also for tax purposes and offer another layer of protection against creditors. Lastly, beware of fraudulent transfer laws. These laws prevent you from transferring assets to avoid existing liabilities. That's where the offshore trust can come in handy. So keep in mind, timing and intent are crucial. If you have a threat against your assets, it is not time to head scratch and think and ponder. It's time to act and protect yourself. Implement asset protection strategies before any hint of legal or financial trouble, and this will give you the best protection. If done correctly, these strategies are perfectly legal and highly effective. So in conclusion, making your assets invisible is about strategic planning. Proactive measures is about creating layers of protection that make it difficult for anybody to link your wealth directly to you. And this reduces your risk of being a target in a lawsuit and allows you to protect what you've worked so hard to build. So if you like this kind of information, please click the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't already. But more importantly, give me feedback on what you'd like to see, and we really appreciate the feedback, so don't be shy. Put it in the comments, and that's where we get our ideas and create content based on your specific needs and desires. So if you know anybody who's constantly getting sued, and they have tenants that are always finding something to complain about, they have a spouse who's constantly coming back for more money after a divorce because they can see all of their assets they own and they want a piece of them, let them know. Share this information with them so they can start creating more privacy and that they're not creating issues for themselves unknowingly. So thank you for choosing the Business Guy channel to be informed about how to protect your assets. We'll see you next time for more information like this. This is the Business Guy.